Auzubillahiminashaitanirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Ji ayanu pakhaira agale ni hao chunashumme washmale ohai guzaimas. Guten Morgen. Hola. Bonjour. Privyet. Kaifa hal? Hale shuma chatore. Ahlan wa sahlan. Marhaba. Buna mucho gracias. Wabi ab bhalli kare aaya. Hoş geldin and ayo saya. Khuya mora chi bato chi hal jod kali mera khairutan. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and are watching World this morning. Alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Haja Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Hajra, Assalamu alaikum, how was your weekend?
Walaikum assalam, thank you so much for asking me. I think I had an amazing weekend, but now let's moving on to very interesting stories, and today happens to be
bring it on.
28th of October, and it is the International Animation Day. So International Animation Day was an international observance proclaimed in 2002 as a main event to celebrate the art of the animation. This day commemorates the first public performance of the Charles Emily in the Musée Greven in Paris 1892, and in 1895 the cinematograph of the Lumiere brothers outshone Renault's invention, driving Emily to bankruptcy. Wow, that's an interesting story. However, his public performance of the animation entered the history of the optical entertainments as shortly predating the camera-made movies. So I think animation, no one can deny the importance of that, and how significant is that, especially in enticing the interest of the people.
Exactly, not just that, a lot of times, we actually kind of get ourselves into a debacle, while arguing whether, what Pakistanis have achieved so far. So I think this is a reminder for all of those people who actually get into an argumentative debacle, and that is that China's Hunan University of Medicine has named its newly inaugurated research center after Pakistani professor Dr. Muhammad Iqbal Chaudhry. This center will house 17 full-time researchers dedicated to advancing scientific collaboration between Pakistan and China. Founded in 1912, the institution is a national public medical university in China. Dr. Chaudhry has in the past advocated for fostering cooperation between Chinese and Pakistani scientists, particularly for establishing research centers between the two countries. He has also received numerous awards, including civil awards as Hilal-e-Imtiaz, Sitara-e-Imtiaz and Tamga-e-Imtiaz in 2021. He was awarded the Mustafa Prize for his services in the field of bioorganic chemistry.
That's very interesting, and I think we are really proud as Pakistanis that our Pakistani fellow brethren are making their presence felt, especially in the international fora. And so now, since Shahzad was asking about how was my weekend, and I think it also related to a weather conversation, because whenever we are asking about someone, how is the weather today, so that is the kick starting of the conversation. So whenever we talk about the weather, what are the implications for that? And I think one of the phenomena that a lot of people have found very interesting and very intriguing in the first place is that the predictions that are made, and why are they not coming true? So is there any climatic changes that are in this equation, or kick-starting some sort of process, or is it some sort of another explanation that is there? So in order to talk about it, to unfold the conversation about the weather patterns, especially in the October, we are very glad that we have been joined by Dr. Sarfaraz, who happens to be the Chief Meteorologist, Pakistan's Met Department. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Sarfaraz, and thank you so much for joining us.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
So, Dr. Sarfaraz, I think one of the worry I would like to say, or one of the very important question that is in the mind of a lot of citizens of the Pakistan is that why are the predictions of the Met Department not very accurate? In the past, we've seen that the predictability and accuracy element was always there, but now that is not the point. So, is there some explanation out there which you can explain, or is it these simple climatic changes that we are witnessing nowadays?
No, actually, it's not the case that the predictions are not accurate. Predictions have actually improved a lot. If you notice the previous forecast, for example, 20 years back, 30 years back, and compare today's forecast if you compare to the previous years. So it has improved a lot. Actually, there are 3 to 4, types of weather predictions. One is the short range weather forecast. Second is the medium range weather forecast, and third is the seasonal long range forecast. So the accuracy varies with the time lag actually. So if you talk about the short range forecast, short range consists of 24 to 72 hours, 1 to 3 days. So that's accuracy is more than 90%. We actually evaluate the frequency at the end of the each month, and that is also published on the website. So it is available over there also. So you can compare that forecast with the previous years if you for the sake of, I mean, clarification.
Exactly.
When
Going
you,
quickly,
I mean,
Dr. Saab.
when you forecast with a larger lag time, for example, when you forecast for a week or for 10 days, so that actually happens everywhere in the world. That as long as the lead time increases, the forecast accuracy is a little bit compromised then, because meanwhile the atmospheric conditions I mean, undergo the changes. So at the beginning of this forecast, when you initiate with the some initial conditions, so meanwhile those initial conditions also sometimes they go under change more than have you have assessed, and sometimes your estimation you underestimate, and sometimes you overestimate them. So that's happened because of the climate change actually. So short range forecast accuracy is quite good, that is over 90%, and medium range forecast accuracy, you can say it falls between 80% to 85%. And the seasonal forecast, yeah, that is the tricky business actually, because you make a prediction for a whole season, for example, at the beginning of the monsoon. And incidentally, you have been noticing that for the last 3 to 4, 5 years, the monsoon forecast has also been very good. For
Right,
example, in
right. Dr.
20,
Surprise, I get your point that you are making. So now let's move on to the winter season, and also let's venture into the fifth season that is now being labeled. This is called the smog season. And whenever smog season approaches, we are witnessing that generally people are having this health issues, right? So what about the air quality index? Is there any particular app on which the Met Department is working so that we can have that app and we can have that conversation? So if you want to go outside or not outside, and what sort of precautionary measures do you see? So what is Met Department doing in order to curb the menace of smog?
actually, it's not the domain of Met Department to monitor the air quality. You know, the in every province at the federal level there is a department, environmental protection department or environmental protection agency. Similarly, in the provinces, there are also the provincial environmental protection agencies or departments. So basically, I think it's their domain to monitor the air quality and then to, I mean, organize these things. But otherwise, as you know, the October and November and December, these are the months which in which we have we receive very little amount of rainfall. And incidentally, the in the season when the winter season is more dry, for example, this winter season is going to be more dry. So in the month of October and then in the month of December, you will have very less amount of rain. So that's why the air pollutants. I mean, they are just remain suspended in the air because of the very low speed
So
of
it's
wind
probably
and
going to
because of
be
the
the
very
way that
less
it
rain.
is. Dr. Saab, okay, we get your point that now, but what we certainly want to kind of look forward to is having a wonderful winter over here in Pakistan as well. So how much longer is it going to take to reach to a level of 7 degrees or 5 degrees or 3 degrees, or I have witnessed in Islamabad -1 and 0 degree as well. So till what time, or probably do you think it's going to be in December, January, and do you think that this time around the winters is going to be prolonged or a shortened winter that we are going to be in for?
As I have already I mentioned before you that this winter is going to be drier winter. I mean, drier than average. Very less rain you are expecting this winter. So overall, at the moment, the seasonal
Dry is
forecast, for
fine.
example, October
What
to
I'm trying
December
to
forecast.
ask you about is the length of the weather that we're going to witness over here. For example, so we have experienced, a lengthy summer. Do you think that, because previously in Islamabad, I think that the winter actually lasted till March, if I'm not, over
Yep.
exaggerating. So are we going to experience a lengthy winter, or are we going to experience a winter of only 2, 3 months?
I think keeping the present conditions in view, we can expect the shorter winter, not lengthy winters. But the temperature you are mentioning that is about zero and sub-zero temperatures, we can get those temperatures in the month of January. Usually January is the coldest month all across Pakistan. So last 10 days of December and then the month of January and then first 10 days of the February. So this is the window of extreme winter temperatures you can get in that window.
Wonderful.
Right, right. Dr. Saab, and one last question before we wrap up this segment, and that is related to farmers because their activity is heavily linked to how the weather is going to turn up to be, right? So what sort of advice would you like to dole out to the farmers out there whose activity or whose agricultural activity depends upon the winter, the rain and all of this stuff? So what is the advice that you would like to dole up? Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Very good question you have put because as I mentioned that this winter is going to be drier, so farmers have to, manage their activities according to the keeping in the forecast that in mind. So luckily we are going to have some light to moderate rain in the northern areas of Pakistan, which are the mostly rain-fed areas. For example, your Potfar area and then KP and Gilgit-Baltistan. So tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, 2 days, 29th and 30th October, we are going to have a shorter spell of rainfall. And then after 10 or 12 days, the around 10th November, we will have another.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. And for now, ladies and gentlemen, we need to head out towards a short break. Once you come back, we'll be talking about curing cancers. Let's do this. Good morning.
Welcome back. And an interesting development, Thailand, which happens to be a majority Buddhist country, is challenging Asia for Malaysia rather, for the Asia's halal crown. So Thailand is banking that its burgeoning halal industry will deliver a boost to its tourism-reliant economy, which has struggled to bounce back from the COVID pandemic as quickly as many of its regional peers. Bangkok ambitions, however, deepen on the trust of the Muslim countries and visitors, which could be put at risk by the fake halal products and gaps in certification in informal markets. The centerpiece of the 4-year plan, which is awaiting final approval, is the establishment of a halal valley for producing halal goods, which officials could suggest could locate Thailand's Muslim majority southernmost provinces.
Chalo, at least something's going to be halal in Bangkok finally. Finally, but now moving on, ladies and gentlemen, where if you are afraid of snakes, I think this is the news for you all. So, Asclepian snakes are non-native, but after 2 potential escapes can be found in the capital near London Zoo and Regent's Canal and around Cloyne Bay in North Wales. A study on the snakes found they were actively seeking and returning to use inhabited buildings. Researchers from Bangor University observed them climbing large structures to access the attics and wall cavities of houses. Male Asclepian snakes had a distinct preference for buildings, with 7 out of 8 seeking indoor shelter and are unafraid of using buildings and other features in close proximity to humans. Female snakes, however, prefer to stay in woodland. Yeah.
Right,
So-
and I think speaking of London and speaking of UK, we have someone in the studio who is very passionate on working on the cancers, and he has actually published the 2 books. And I think one of the feat that I find is remarkable in the production of these 2 books is that it's very friendly for those people who are not in the field of the medicine, and it talks to the language and it speaks in this language of the common man, and this is what it makes very fascinating. So in order to talk more about it, the book's name is You Will Wish You Were an Elephant, Killing Cancer Kindly. So what does killing cancer kindly means? We are very glad that we have been joined by a very prestigious doctor straight from the UK who was working very diligently on Pakistan in curing cancer and in creating awareness surrounding it. We are very glad that we have been joined by Dr. Mohammad Munib Khan. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Thank you for having
So
me.
wonderful to have you over here. First things first, you know, if I would want to share the
Sure.
front page of the book with people out there. So they're fruits, but they're in a shape of a elephant face. Yeah. So what does an elephant have to do with the cancer, sir?
That's a very interesting question. When I was studying medicine and oncology especially, I often asked my professors and the big researchers in the cancer field why the rate of cancer was rising in human beings and why humans had so much cancer. I mean, in England now the rate is about 50% lifetime risk of cancer. And the answer I always got was that because humans are big animals, big mammals who live for very long, they're bound to have cancer. And that seems to be the general impression among the public, that if you live long enough, you end up with having cancer. But that is not true. I studied and started looking at data from other animals, big mammals, and elephants stood out literally because they have got 100 times more cells than us.
Yeah.
Right, right.
And they live up to 60 to 80 years.
Right.
But their risk of cancer is less than 5%.
Right.
So when I looked at the historical record, the human species risk of cancer should also be less than 5%.
Right.
In fact, in some
But sir,
ethnic
they only eat
groups-
sugar canes and grass and that's it, or fruits probably, you know. So do you think that that actually helps or kind of settles the argument that, you know, why do humans get it more?
I wish it could have settled the argument, but that's a very valid argument. If you compare elephants to vegetarian human beings, still the rate of cancer in vegetarian humans or vegan humans is getting higher
Really?
and is much higher than in elephants. So when you take all the confounding factors out, you take away the diet element, eating meat and other confounding factors, you still end up with elephants having a much lower risk.
Right.
For example, elephants, if they take alcohol, if they drink alcohol regularly, and there are domesticated elephants who do that,
Right.
the risk of cancer related to alcohol does not go as high as it does in human beings.
Okay.
So we are doing something wrong
Right.
as humans.
For example,
For example, it is our lifestyle. I mean, you will see that elephants, although they eat a lot, but they would eat organic and they
Right.
would eat healthy food. Now, we've moved into big cities where provision of food is a problem, and to preserve food, all the commercial producers, they are putting chemicals and they're putting substances, minerals and other
Yes,
products
yes.
into the food which are damaging our health.
True.
And that's a major factor. 95% of the reason for cancer is our lifestyle and the
Right.
environment, and 5% is only genetic.
And building on this conversation, thank you so much, Dr. Sapo, highlighting that. And I think elephants are more wiser and more fortunate than us human beings. Please shed some light on the immobility in our modern lifestyles, right? So we have moved to a like modernized form of the world in which modernity is defined with being suited, booted, and with that. So please explore some of the nature-based solutions and the solutions or lifestyle that our ancestors used to have. For example, squatting you mentioned. And then also shed light on the element of immobility in our lives, especially in Pakistan.
Yes, that is very important. I mean, our body is designed to fulfill a purpose.
Right.
And one of the purposes of the human body is that we walk. And we are designed to walk, and that's how we burn our calories. When we give up that normal function of our body,
Right.
then we have a lot of atrophy and dystrophy of muscle setting in.
Right.
And while we were discussing before the program, you mentioned squatting. I mean, that is one normal human healthy habit of the body,
True.
which in the Western culture has become almost
Commercialized, yeah. Going
yeah.
to this gyms and then doing squatting
yes,
instead
exactly.
of doing
People have to pay money to
Yeah.
squat. Now, important thing is people often ask me how much exercise do I need? And in my book, I've done a whole section on exercise, and I would highly recommend you read that. And the interesting part is that even 11 minutes of exercise a day
Right.
is enough to extend your life expectancy.
wow.
So whatever life you've got left, if you do 11 minutes of exercise a day, you extend it a little bit. And if you add on to it, you get better and better on. So it's not a lot of physical exercise and activity that we need.
And in addition to this, I think I would want to kind of, expand on this, and that is that, when we overwork out, that's certainly not good as well, because, your muscles might not have that capacity, you're breaking them, you want to build them back, you might not be drinking enough water. But while we're at it, let's talk about the environmental factors as well, urban cities that we live in. And how do you think that just by opening a single window, we can actually avoid cancer?
Yes, that's one of the studies and research we did, and we found out that certain type of cancer, especially lung cancer,
Yes.
up to 5 to 6% of it is caused due to a gas known as radon, which is a radioactive gas. It comes out of the ground and is found all over the world. In some parts of the world, the levels are higher than the others. And this gas, if you inhale, it can damage your lung tissues and increase your risk of lung cancer. Now, people often keep their doors and windows locked, especially in the winter. Now, the winter is coming, the
Right.
heating bills are going to get higher. People would not like to open the windows to keep the house warm, and that is not very healthy. So, if you can just open a window and leave it open for an hour and then come back and close it, it will take about 5 seconds to do that. But you will release a lot of radon, toxic gas
Okay.
from the house.
Yes.
And traditionally, I think in our villages and culture, there was a tradition that when the sun was about to set, people would open up the windows and they'll say that the angels of mercy enter the house, and this is the time we should do that. And that was, of course, it was religiously ingrained in a different way, but that fulfilled a purpose, and you got rid of all the
But
radon
people
gas in
hardly
the house.
open windows in UK though.
They don't.
weather's too cold.
Unfortunately, they don't open it for days, and that's
Yeah.
what I am propagating there. I'm speaking to them and saying, please open it up for at least 1 hour. You wake up in the morning, open the window, get ready for work. While leaving for work, close the window.
I think this is the more darker side of the maternity that we need to talk on more, and how it is contributing towards a very unhealthy and unsustainable form of the lifestyle. So, Dr. Saab, speaking about the lifestyles, I think our nutritious lifestyle is also an essential part of it, right?
Yes.
So, explain the relationship between the coffee and the cancer. What is the relationship between these two C's?
And being hungry as well, or
Yes.
staying hungry.
Now, going back to what Shahzad mentioned earlier about not exercising too much, what studies have shown is that intermittent high intensity exercise is better, the HIIT kind of thing, than it is to exercise every day. Similarly, when it comes to eating, we have found that people who fast and feast alternatively, they live a healthier life and they have less chances of disease. So, it's important for human beings to fast. Like, for example, I think our ancestors knew it instinctively. When we wake up in the morning, we say we are going to have a breakfast, which is a break fast. We call it a breakfast, but it's actually a break fast. And overnight, you're supposed to fast. So, every day, nighttime, once the sun sets, we should refrain from eating or raiding the fridge. In older times, people didn't have access to fresh food, so they practically couldn't eat. But now we live in such a modern and luxurious lifestyle, like royalty, that we have food available 24 hours of the day. And similarly, every few days we need to do intermittent fasting, which is the easiest way to kill cancer cells and kill them kindly, and also to reduce the risk of diabetes and heart diseases and even dementia and mental decline.
Right. Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for shedding the light on the cancer. And I think, Dr. Saab, I would like to mention he is also working on the awareness aspect of the cancer, and he's also working with creating animation character of the elephant in order to make sure that people are aware of that. And I would highly recommend that please go ahead and buy this very interesting book, because it has a lot of animation in it, and it is written in a very common man friendly language, and language that also transcends the boundaries of the medicine. And then there's another book, the how, what and why of the cancer. So I think it's essential, because we are in October, it is the breast cancer awareness month, and we need to have more such conversation. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for coming here, for doing this very wonderful, vital aspect or work on curing the cancer and contributing towards a Pakistani society. We're always indebted to them, people like him, for coming into our shows. We will go on a short break, and after we come back, we have an interesting discussion lineup, so don't go anywhere. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. And in recent developments, where Pakistan has actually won against England a test series, and that too after a long, long time. So after 2015, in 2024, Pakistan was able to do that we won a series against England. Not just that, in home conditions after 3 years and 11 months. But now, obviously, we are planning to go for Australia tour, where it's going to be 3 one-day internationals and 3 T20s. The squads have been announced. Let's take a good look at the squads first of all. So, ladies and gentlemen, for Australia One Day International, it's going to be Ahmed Jamal, Abdullah Shafiq, Arafat Minhas, Babar Azam comes in, Faisal Akram comes in, Haris Rauf comes in, and Hasibullah, wicketkeeper, is there. Rizwan obviously happens to be the white ball captain now. But while we're at it, I think we really need to kind of talk about how Rizwan is actually going to manage while being a skipper. So these squads certainly do show, or probably give us the hope that Pakistan will be able to do well. We have included all of those players who've already scored in Australia, and that's exactly one thing that we needed. But from here onwards, I hope that the confidence that they have garnered from the victory against England, that they're going to go and kind of make sure that they're going to be victorious against Australia. So best of luck, Team Pakistan.
Best of luck, Team Pakistan. And now moving on to another very important topic, which is COP29, which is going to be held in Azerbaijan in the coming days on 11th of November. And COP29 report has emerged, and it talks about very staggering issues. And one of the important highlight of the report is that the climate change is a symptom of a systemic issues, and it talked about the ecological overload, and it also mentioned the collapse of the society, the social collapse that we are going to witness, which is a very damning remark. And what exactly is meant by that, we are joined by someone who is going to explain about it, because he has joined us from the Canada. He has done some amazing work in the field of the energy, in the field of climate change. We are very glad that we have been joined by Dr. Umar Farooq. Assalamu alaikum, Umar, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Hajra. Thank you.
Right, wonderful. So, Dr. Umar, as I would want you to please extrapolate on the very damning report that COP29 has mentioned, and it talks about that how in the next decade we are going to witness an expansion of the gas or the fossil fuel. So, what does this mean for the humanity? Because it mentioned about that how humanity is hanging in the balance. It's a very tight rope with that we are walking on. What does that mean?
Well, thank you for taking this topic to talk about, and I think it's really important that we should talk about this issue since we are going into COP29 very soon, maybe starting second week.
Yes. Yes. So COP29 conference is, I think, going to be on 11th of November, which happens to be the second week of the November. So yes, Dr. Umar, please explain.
So yes, so what I was talking about was the expansion of gas pipelines and the global reaction, particularly Western reaction to these pipelines in eastern part of the world. Since we have energy security looming around because of the wars in Ukraine and then this Middle East, what's happening in Middle East, because of all these issues, we have growing demand for energy. And the projects like nuclear and gas pipelines, they was thought to be stopped at some point, but because of all these recent security issues that actually enhance the energy security itself, so these pipelines have become somehow the important discussions in the COP29. And with this state-owned oil company of Azerbaijan, they have announced several different gas pipeline and their production and the expansion, and then the investment they are making in exploration park. It is somehow making Western economies a bit worried that why these pipelines, because pipelines are now synonym to the anti-climate change activities, which could be argued whether it's a true phenomena, whether it's a true analogy or not. But since this is happening, so reports are coming because of the Azerbaijan's.
That's exactly what we would want to learn, So, this entire discussion or analogy about the gas pipelines, all over the world, why do you think that this has become an analogy now, and that why is it being discussed? What's the reasoning behind it?
So I think what's happening right now, there has been a huge conflict of understanding climate change and how to mitigate it between Western world and how the developing economies like China, Central Asia, and how the third world countries are looking into the climate change. Because now what West wants is that there should not be any further fossil fuel expansion if we want to meet net zero by 2050. And then reaching this target would mean like we need to have these pipelines cut down, because once we are establishing a pipeline, it means we are now looking for next 50, 60 years at least, going with the going again with the with the fossil fuel energy. So this is kind of concerning for Western economies, but all those developing countries, they have their argument that since we are now in stage, we are having these natural resources and we cannot stop these pipelines, because youth now think that climate change is only an issue that is being created by developing countries. So this discourse that is around the pipelines is pretty controversial, and it's not only in the Eastern countries itself. It's also very much a concerning issue within the Western economies as well. Like even in Canada itself, where I actually work, there are huge discussions about two different pipelines, one that goes to with the Western coast and one that goes to US and Eastern coast. So they're always
Right. Dr. Umar, we have seen that in USA it is also a very big issue, and it is the issue which is also linked with the indigenous rights people. So now one of the important and damning factor of the report is that humanities, or rather many of the Earth's vital signs have hit the record extreme, and out of the 35 assessed parameters, 25 are in the worst condition, including carbon dioxide and human population, right? Do you think we can move beyond this political bickering, the global politics, and work towards the health of our planet Earth and work towards a betterment of the humanity as a whole? Or is it just a lip servicing that the countries are paying in the COP29?
So, Hajar, this is very interesting. Like everybody wants to save planet at this point. Everyone wants that we should have a green planet. We should leave this planet in a better condition for the next generations. But now the point is, how do we want to tackle this climate change issue? Whether it's through adoption, whether it's through completely terminating the fossil fuel industry. But it's not happening because if only Western countries or advanced economies want it, like the agenda for this COP29 would again be pretty much on the same lines that we saw in UAE. Like there should be some pledges, there should be some new promises, but what has been done in the past year, past many years, is very much like there are major concerns, major reservations from the climate sciences about the happenings of COP itself, like whether it is a productive meeting, whether these are bringing some positive chances, targets.
Is it more of discussion?
Yeah. And then the report, Dr. Saab also mentioned that the renewable energy like solar, like wind, it is on the rise, but it cannot replace the hegemony or the dominance of the fossil fuels. So do you think that the countries whose entire economy depends upon these fossil fuels, will they be vital in a fight against the climate change? Because taking the bull from the horn is quite a complex task. Your last comments, please.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Since all these renewable energy technologies and everything is good and everybody actually appreciates them, but transitioning into those technologies from fossil fuels, particularly for developing countries like China and India, it's not that easy how Western countries want them to do, and they assume that it should be done. It's not easy for them. This transition might take longer than what is anticipated, and we are not on the track of reaching to net zero by 2050. And I think that is what would be discussed in COP29 again in Azerbaijan.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Umar, for shedding light on such a vital and important aspect. And according to the report, we need some bold transformation act, and this is something that we would further like to develop the conversation. But for now, we will save the debate. Until next time, so goodbye, Allah Hafiz, and
Look after yourselves. Good morning. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.